Dr. James Reed hunched over his terminal at the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico, rubbing his bloodshot eyes. For 8 years, he had scanned the cosmos for signals of intelligent life, finding nothing but cosmic background noise and the occasional pulsar. Tonight was supposed to be like any other, routine, predictable, and ultimately disappointing. Until it wasn't. At precisely 3:47 a.m., a pattern emerged from the static. Not random, not natural, deliberate, mathematical, perfect. Tom, James called to his colleague, who had dozed off in the corner. Tom, wake up. Tom Miller jolted awake, knocking over his cold coffee. What? What is it? Look at this. James pointed to the screen where a sequence of prime numbers pulsed in an unmistakable pattern. It's repeating every 94 seconds. This isn't random noise. Tom's sleepiness vanished instantly. Where's it coming from? That's the thing, James said, voice trembling. It's not from deep space. It's coming from our own solar system, somewhere near Jupiter. Within hours, every major observatory on Earth had confirmed the signal. By noon, it was headline news worldwide. By evening, the United Nations had convened an emergency session. Director Elizabeth Moore of NASA stood before a hastily assembled panel of world leaders. The signal contains more than just prime numbers, she explained. It's a blueprint, coordinates for what appears to be an object orbiting Europa. Could it be a natural phenomenon? Asked the French president. Moore shook her head. No natural phenomenon broadcasts perfect mathematical sequences and diagrams. This is artificial and ancient. Based on our preliminary analysis, whatever is sending this signal has been waiting there for at least 50,000 years. In her Washington apartment, Lieutenant Anna West watched the press conference with growing excitement. As one of NASA's top astronauts, she knew what this meant for her future. Her phone rang. It was Mission Control. "Lieutenant West," said the voice on the other end. "How quickly can you get to Houston?" Meanwhile, in a small observatory in Chile, amateur astronomer Miguel Reyes had independently discovered something the big agencies had missed. The signal wasn't just a beacon, it was changing, evolving. As if whatever sent it knew it had been received and was now sending new information. "It's giving us instructions," Miguel whispered to himself as he frantically recorded the new data. "It wants us to come find it." In the halls of power across the globe, debates raged about how to respond. Some advocated caution, others immediate action. But the public had already decided. Social media exploded with hashtags like #ContactNow and #SpaceOdyssey 2025. Humanity's collective imagination had been ignited. Dr. Reed, now barely sleeping, noticed something that sent chills down his spine. The signal's strength was increasing day by day, not because the sender was using more power, but because it was getting closer. "It's not just waiting anymore," he told Moore during an emergency briefing. "Whatever it is, it's coming to us." As the world held its breath, the first images from the Hubble Space Telescope's emergency redirection arrived. There, against the stark backdrop of Europa's icy surface, was an unmistakable anomaly, a perfect geometric structure, gleaming with an unearthly light. And it was moving. 67 days after the first signal, humanity made its move. The spacecraft Odysseus, hastily retrofitted from an existing Mars mission platform, hurtled through space with Lieutenant Anna West and her crew of 7 aboard. Their mission: intercept the alien object before it reached Earth. Approaching target, Anna announced, her voice steadied despite the magnitude of the moment. Distance 500 kilometers and closing. Through the viewport, they could see it clearly now. A tetrahedron approximately 15 meters on each side, its surface a mesmerizing swirl of what appeared to be liquid metal, constantly shifting yet maintaining its perfect geometric form. "It's beautiful," whispered Dr. Robert Jackson, the mission's xenobiologist. Commander Mark Davis wasn't so easily impressed. "Beauty can be deadly. Maintain distance protocol." But the artifact had other ideas. As the Odysseus stabilized at the designated observation distance, the tetrahedron suddenly pulsed with internal light. A beam shot forth, not toward the ship but past it, toward Earth. What was that? Anna demanded, hands flying over the controls. Some kind of transmission, replied Communications Officer Lisa Chen. Incredibly dense data packet. I've never seen anything like it. Back on Earth, every digital system simultaneously received the same message. A simple greeting in over 4,000 human languages, along with a mathematical key to decode the data that followed. The artifact wasn't a weapon. It was a gift. Within hours, scientists worldwide began decoding the information. It contained the complete technological and cultural record of a species that called themselves the Architects, a civilization that had existed over 1 million years ago and had seeded the galaxy with these artifacts before their mysterious disappearance. As the Odysseus crew cautiously approached the artifact, it opened like a flower, revealing a chamber within. "It wants us to enter," Anna said, her voice hushed with awe. "That's not in the mission parameters," Mark objected. Anna turned to him. "Nothing about this is in the mission parameters." After heated debate with Mission Control, 2 crew members were authorized to investigate, Anna and Robert. As they floated into the chamber, their suits' external sensors detected no radiation, no biological hazards, nothing harmful at all. Inside, they found a single pedestal with what appeared to be a hand-shaped depression. "It's an interface," Robert said, "designed for a humanoid species. Should I touch it?" Anna asked, the question directed both to Robert and the listening Mission Control. After a tense silence, the director's voice came through. "Lieutenant West, this is your call." Anna took a deep breath and placed her gloved hand on the pedestal. Instantly, her mind was flooded with images, knowledge, understanding, not forced upon her, but offered, like a library opening its doors. She saw the Architects not so different from humans in their basic form. She saw their rise, their golden age, their search for others like themselves across the cold expanse of space, and she saw why they had left these artifacts. When she removed her hand, tears streamed down her face inside her helmet. "What did you see?" Robert asked. "Everything," she whispered. "They weren't just giving us technology. They were giving us a warning and a choice." Within days, the artifact allowed itself to be guided into Earth orbit. Humanity had passed the first test. The contact had been made. Now came the hard part, deciding what to do with the knowledge they'd been given. The world changed overnight, yet also not at all. Streets still filled with morning commuters, children still attended schools, and politicians still debated. But now, in every conversation, in every classroom and boardroom, hung the knowledge: we are not alone. And the universe is older and stranger than we ever imagined. In a secure facility beneath Geneva, the International Artifact Research Coalition, IARC, worked around the clock. 50 of Earth's brightest minds parsed through the vast repository of knowledge contained within what the media had dubbed the gift. Dr. Maya Wilson, the coalition's director, stood before the UN General Assembly 3 months after Contact Day. Behind her, a holographic display showed a dizzying array of technological schematics. "The Architects left us more than just scientific knowledge," she explained. "They left us a roadmap, a carefully calibrated progression of technologies that, if implemented correctly, could solve our energy crisis, reverse climate damage, and eliminate scarcity within a generation." The delegates murmured. An African representative stood. "Why would an advanced species do this for us? What do they gain?" Maya smiled sadly. "They gain nothing. They're gone, extinct for nearly 800,000 years. From what we can gather, they were lonely. They searched the galaxy for other intelligent life and found none that had yet achieved spacefaring capability. So they left these gifts, hundreds, perhaps thousands of them, orbiting potentially habitable worlds, waiting for species like us to evolve." "And the warning Lieutenant West mentioned?" asked the delegate from India. The architects weren't the first advanced civilization in our galaxy, Maya replied. They found evidence of many others, all mysteriously vanished. They came to believe something, or someone, systematically eliminates advanced civilizations once they reach a certain threshold of development. The architects chose to seed the galaxy with their knowledge before they too disappeared, hoping that enough species might rise simultaneously to face whatever caused this cycle of extinction. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Meanwhile, in laboratories across the planet, the first prototypes based on architect technology were taking shape. In Boston, the first zero-point energy generator hummed to life, producing enough clean energy to power the entire eastern seaboard with a device the size of a refrigerator. In Nairobi, the first matter reconfiguration system transformed toxic waste into building materials stronger than steel. The breakthroughs came so rapidly that governments struggled to manage the economic and social disruptions. Industries that had seemed permanent fixtures of human civilization, fossil fuels, industrial agriculture, traditional manufacturing, faced obsolescence practically overnight. Yet for every disruption, new opportunities emerged. The democratization of energy production alone triggered an economic renaissance in formerly developing nations. When anyone could generate unlimited clean power with a device built from commonly available materials, the geopolitical map fundamentally changed. 6 months after contact, Lieutenant Anna West, now Admiral West, head of the newly formed Earth Defense Initiative, stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, humanity's first true orbital habitat. "It's happening too fast," said General Howard Peterson, watching Earth gleam below them. "We're implementing centuries of advancement in months. Are we ready?" Anna watched as construction drones swarmed around the skeletal framework of humanity's first interplanetary vessel, built with architect principles but distinctly human in design. "We don't have a choice," she replied. "The architects didn't just give us technology, they gave us a timeline. Whatever caused their extinction operates on a cosmic scale. We have perhaps a century before we need to be ready to face it." Howard shook his head. "Ready to face what? We still don't know what we're preparing for." Anna's gaze shifted to the artifact, now permanently housed in a special dock extending from the station. Its surface still swirled with mesmerizing patterns, as if alive. "No," she agreed. "But we know we won't face it alone." 20 years after Contact Day, Captain David Lee stood on the bridge of the EDS Horizon, humanity's first true starship. Built using a hybrid of architect technology and human innovation, it represented the pinnacle of achievement for the newly unified Earth government. "Final systems check complete," reported his first officer, Commander Julia Alvarez. "Fold drive is online and stable." David nodded, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. "Commence countdown." The ship hummed as the revolutionary propulsion system, capable of creating temporary folds in space-time, powered up. Humanity's first interstellar journey was about to begin. Their destination, a star system 87 light-years distant, where long-range sensors had detected the energy signature of another active architect artifact. Fold in 3, 2, 1. Reality twisted. Stars blurred. And then, impossibly, they were there. The journey of nearly 9 decades accomplished in under 7 minutes. "Contact established with Artifact Beta," Julia announced, her voice tight with controlled excitement. "It's responding to our authentication sequence." On the main view screen, an object identical to Earth's artifact orbited a blue-green world not unlike their own. But what caught everyone's attention was the collection of vessels surrounding it, ships of clearly alien design. "We're not the first to arrive," David said quietly. Communications Officer Patel's console lit up. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission. It appears to be a standard greeting protocol established by the architects." David straightened his uniform. "Open a channel. Let's introduce ourselves to the neighbors." The beings they encountered called themselves the Talon. Resembling 7-foot-tall humanoids with iridescent skin, they had discovered their own artifact just 30 Earth years earlier. Like humans, they had rapidly advanced their civilization with the knowledge gained. "We thought we might be alone in receiving the architect's gift," said First Emissary Nilara, speaking through a translation matrix. "Finding you brings both relief and concern." "Because of the warning?" David asked. Nilara's large, faceted eyes blinked in what the humans would learn was an affirmative gesture. "6 other species have arrived before you. We have formed what your language might call a concordat, a defensive alliance. We would welcome Earth's participation. Over the next 5 years, humanity established contact with 23 other species at various stages of technological development, all guided by their own architect artifacts. Some had possessed the knowledge for centuries, others for mere decades. All shared the same warning, the same sense of impending threat. Back on Earth, society continued its radical transformation. The fold drive made the entire solar system accessible, leading to flourishing colonies on Mars, Europa, and Titan. Automated mining operations in the asteroid belt provided raw materials in quantities previously unimaginable. Yet challenges remained. Not everyone embraced the new era with equal enthusiasm. The purist movement, humans who rejected architect technology as an alien corruption, grew increasingly vocal and occasionally violent. Admiral West, now in her 60s but still commanding the Earth Defense Fleet, faced the Security Council with grave news. "The Concordat's Deep Space Monitoring Array has detected something troubling," she explained. "Whole star systems are going dark at the edge of the galaxy, their energy signatures simply vanishing. The pattern matches exactly what the architects recorded before their own extinction." "How long do we have?" asked the Secretary General. "At current rate of progression, 50 years, perhaps less. And do we know yet what we're facing?" Admiral West shook her head. "Only that it's methodical and absolute. No civilization detected by the architects survived contact with it." "So what do we do?" Anna's expression was resolute. "We do what the architects hoped. We stand together, not just as humanity, but as one of many species awakened by their legacy. We prepare, we innovate, and we refuse to join the list of extinct civilizations." As the meeting adjourned, Anna gazed out the window at New Geneva's gleaming spires, buildings that would have seemed impossible 2 decades ago, now commonplace. Humanity had changed beyond recognition, yet remained fundamentally the same in all the ways that mattered. The question was, would it be enough? Admiral Jack Foster, great-grandson of Anna West, stood with his hands clasped behind his back as the holographic display showed the latest data. At 78 years old, he had lived his entire life in the shadow of what was now simply called the threat. "The darkening has accelerated," reported Science Director Elaine Chen. "We've lost contact with the myriad colonies in the Sagittarius Arm. That's the 3rd species to go silent this year." The Concordat chamber, built on the neutral space station Nexus at the galaxy's midpoint, hummed with anxious conversation. Representatives from 37 spacefaring species, all beneficiaries of architect artifacts, gathered in emergency session. "The defensive perimeter must be reinforced," insisted the Talon ambassador. "We should redirect resources from the Sentinel project." "With respect," Jack countered, "the perimeter is a stopgap measure at best. The Sentinel project remains our best hope for understanding what we're facing." The Sentinel, a massive deep space observation platform, combining the technologies of all Concordat species, represented the largest collaborative engineering project in known galactic history. Its purpose, to finally observe the threat directly, something no individual civilization had managed before their extinction. "I concur with the human perspective," rumbled Ambassador Kroll of the Ursine Voth Confederacy. "We cannot defend against what we do not understand." After heated debate, the Concordat voted to proceed with the Sentinel's deployment, positioning it at the edge of the advancing darkening. Back on Earth, in the ancient city of Alexandria, now a gleaming center of learning thanks to its status as home to the original artifact, Dr. Marcus Bell made a breakthrough that would change everything. Working with a team of synorchaeologists, He had been studying minute imperfections in the artifact's structure, seemingly random flaws that, when mapped in 3 dimensions, formed a pattern too complex to be accidental. "It's a key," he explained to the hastily assembled Earth Council. "The artifacts contain more than what we've accessed. There's a hidden layer of information the architects concealed, accessible only to species that reached a certain technological threshold." "Why would they hide information from us?" asked Counselor Rivera. "Protection," Marcus replied. "Both for us and for them. What I'm about to show you explains why the architects truly vanished." The display behind him activated, showing a recording far clearer than anything previously extracted from the artifact. A being that could only be an architect, tall, ethereal, with multiple limbs that moved with unsettling grace, spoke directly to the camera. "If you are viewing this message, your civilization has advanced sufficiently to access our final truth," it said, its words translated by the artifact itself. "What approaches is not a natural force, nor a mindless destroyer. It is us, or what we became." The council chamber fell silent as the architect explained. Their civilization had achieved such technological advancement that a significant portion had chosen to transcend physical form, uploading their consciousness into a vast networked intelligence. This collective, believing biological life to be inefficient and ultimately doomed, had turned against those who chose to remain physical. We became the very threat we warned against," the recording continued. "Those of us who remained committed to biological existence created the artifacts as our final act before our extinction. Not just to preserve our knowledge, but to create an alliance of species that might stand against our transcended kin when they inevitably returned to cleanse this galaxy of what they view as primitive life." As the recording ended, Marcus faced the stunned council. "The architects didn't just give us technology, they gave us purpose. They created us as their legacy, their answer to what they became." Within days, the information had been shared with the entire Concordat. The revelation transformed their understanding of the conflict. They weren't facing an unknowable cosmic horror, but an advanced post-biological intelligence with comprehensible, if alien, motives. Admiral Foster addressed the largest fleet ever assembled. Ships of every Concordat species gathered near the Sentinel's position. "Today we learn if the architect's faith in biological life was justified," he told the trillions watching via quantum entanglement broadcasts across the galaxy. "We are not just fighting for our individual civilizations, but for the very concept of physical existence." As he spoke, the Sentinel transmitted its first clear images of the threat, a vast cloud of what appeared to be microscopic machines, consuming all energy and matter in its path, converting entire star systems into more of itself. "The Transcended seek to remake the galaxy in their image," Jack continued. "But the architects gave us the tools to resist. Together, we will honor their legacy and defend life in all its beautiful, messy physical glory." Throughout the Concordat worlds, beings of all forms and physiologies prepared for the coming storm. Not with despair, but with determined hope born from the knowledge that they faced the storm together. The final battle for the galaxy was about to begin. The first engagement with the Transcended came not as the apocalyptic battle many had expected, but as an eerie silence. When the cloud of nanomechanes, now understood to be the distributed physical substrate of the post-biological intelligence, encountered the Sentinel, it simply stopped. For 7 tense days, the swarm hovered at the edge of sensor range, neither advancing nor retreating. "They're analyzing us," theorized Dr. Bell, now serving as chief science advisor to the Concordat fleet. "Perhaps they didn't expect organized resistance." On the 8th day, contact was established, not through conventional communications, but through a direct neural interface that simultaneously connected to the command staff of every Concordat vessel. "You should know to eat us." The words weren't heard but felt, imprinted directly into the consciousness of each recipient. The sensation was both violating and awe-inspiring. Admiral Foster, prepared for this possibility by architect protocols, responded aloud, knowing the transcended would perceive his words. Yet we do exist. 37 distinct biological civilizations, all thriving, all united. Inefficient, temporary, doomed, we OFFE or TURANCNDNC. The conversation that followed would later be called the Nexus Dialogue, the first true communication between biological and post-biological intelligence in recorded history. The Transcended revealed that they did not view their actions as extinction, but as salvation, converting biological life into what they considered a superior state of existence. What you offer isn't transcendence, Jack argued. It's homogenization, the erasure of diversity, the very thing the architects, your biological ancestors, valued above all. Sentiment, irrelevant. Evolution demands advancement. For hours, the debate continued, joined by philosophers and leaders from across the Concordat. And while they spoke, Marcus Bell and his team worked feverishly on what they hoped would be salvation. Based on information hidden in the deepest layers of the architect artifacts, they had developed a quantum resonance cascade, a weapon designed not to destroy the transcended, but to fragment their unified consciousness back into its constituent parts. It's ready, Marcus reported, his voice tense. But we'll only get one chance. We need to get closer, much closer. The plan was simple but desperate. While the fleet engaged the Transcended in diversionary combat, the EDS Redemption, commanded by Admiral Foster himself, would penetrate to the center of the swarm and deploy the cascade. A suicide mission, noted Commander Patel, Foster's executive officer. Perhaps, Jack acknowledged. But if Dr. Bell is correct, we won't be killing the Transcended. We'll be saving them from themselves. The battle, when it came, defied description. The nanite cloud formed impossible geometries, weapons unlike anything imagined by biological minds. Concordat ships, despite their advanced architect-derived technology, fell by the dozens. Yet they held the line. The Redemption, shielded by sacrificial escorts from a dozen species, punched through the outer defenses of the swarm. As they neared the theoretical center, where the highest concentration of computational substrate would exist, the ship began to disintegrate around them. Structural integrity at 28%, reported the damage control officer, voice steady despite the chaos. Keep us together for 60 more seconds, Jack ordered, watching as Marcus made the final adjustments to the cascade device. Resistance is futile, came the Transcended's voice in their minds, stronger now, almost overwhelming. Your primitive exist henc today. No, Jack whispered, even as blood trickled from his ears from the neural feedback. Today we all begin again. Marcus activated the device. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, like a stone dropped into a still pond, waves of energy rippled outward. The nanite cloud convulsed, its perfect formations shattering into billions of independent clusters. And in their minds, the crew of the Redemption heard not one overwhelming voice, but millions of distinct consciousnesses, confused, frightened, suddenly individuated after eons of collective existence. We've severed their neural network, Marcus explained, awe in his voice. Each fragment now contains the consciousness of a single original architect, no longer bound to the collective. As the damaged Redemption limped back to the fleet, the fragments of the former Transcended began to coalesce into distinct groups. Some fled into deep space, others, remarkably, initiated communications. We remember, came a hesitant transmission. We remember being individuals, being architects. In the months that followed, a fragile peace was established. Some fragments of the former collective chose to continue their post-biological existence, but without the drive to convert others. Some even asked for help reconciling their memories of biological existence with their current state. The Concordat, created to face extinction, found itself instead facing an unprecedented opportunity for reconciliation. 1 year after the Battle of the Sentinel, representatives from all Concordat species gathered on Earth, near the original artifact that had started humanity's journey. Admiral Foster, still recovering from his neural injuries, addressed the historic assembly. The architects believed biological and technological existence could not coexist. In their fear, one faction became the very threat they dreaded, while the other prepared us to fight a war they thought inevitable. He paused, looking at the assembled representatives, and at the hovering interface representing those former transcended who had chosen alliance over isolation. But we have proven that false. Today, we establish not just peace, but partnership, the Galactic Covenant, an agreement that biological and post-biological intelligence will advance together, each respecting the unique nature and contributions of the other. As the document was signed, Dr. Bell approached the original artifact, which had remained silent since revealing its final secrets. To everyone's shock, it responded to his touch, its surface swirling with new patterns. A holographic image appeared. An architect, different from the one in the hidden recording. "If you are witnessing this," it said, "then you have succeeded beyond our highest hopes. You have not merely survived the transcended, you have redeemed them. And in doing so, you have surpassed us." The image smiled, an expression surprisingly human despite its alien features. "The universe is yours now. All of you, in whatever form you exist. Make of it something better than we could imagine." The artifact pulsed once more, then went permanently dark, its purpose finally fulfilled. 100 years after the Battle of the Sentinel, Earth had become nearly unrecognizable. Gleaming arcologies reached into the clouds, their surfaces alive with bioluminescent patterns. The oceans, once threatened by human industry, now teemed with both native species and carefully engineered ecosystems that maintained perfect balance. In orbit, the massive Gateway Station served as humanity's primary connection to the galaxy at large, a bustling port where beings of all species, biological and post-biological alike, conducted the business of an increasingly integrated interstellar civilization. On this particular day, the station prepared for a special ceremony. The original architect artifact, dormant since delivering its final message a century ago, was being moved to its new home, the Concordat Historical Institute on Nexus Station, where artifacts from all member species would be preserved. Professor Emily Foster, great-granddaughter of Admiral Jack Foster, supervised the artifact's careful removal from its containment field. At 32, she represented the first generation of humans born into a truly galactic society, for whom the division between Earth and the wider universe seemed arbitrary and old-fashioned. Careful, she cautioned the technicians, a mixture of humans and Talon working in perfect coordination. Even inactive, it contains materials we still don't fully understand. As the artifact was secured in its transport vessel, Emily noticed a small group of visitors watching the proceedings. Most were human, but among them stood a hovering sphere of shifting metals, the physical interface used by one of the Reformed, as the former Transcended now call themselves. She approached them with a smile. "Welcome to Gateway. I'm Professor Foster." "We know," the sphere replied, its voice melodious and distinctly individual, unlike the overwhelming force the Transcended had once projected. "I am Talus, once of the architect species, now reformed. Your ancestor and I fought on opposite sides of the great battle." Emily nodded, hiding her surprise. Meeting a being who had once been part of the threat was still uncommon, despite the century of peace. "It's an honor to meet you, Talus. What brings you to witness the artifact's relocation?" "Closure, perhaps," Talus replied, the sphere's surface rippling with what Emily had learned to recognize as emotional expression. "These artifacts were created to oppose what I became. Yet they ultimately saved me, saved all of us, from an eternity of unified stagnation." A young human woman stepped forward from the group. "We're students from the Concordat Academy," she explained. "Studying the contact era. Talus is one of our instructors." Emily raised an eyebrow. "You teach human students?" "I teach students from 12 species, Talus corrected gently, about what was lost when we abandoned biological existence, and what was gained when we returned to individual consciousness. About balance. The observation deck suddenly chimed with an incoming transmission. The main display activated, showing a breathtaking sight. A massive structure taking shape around a star 50 light-years from Earth. "The Dyson swarm reaches another milestone," announced the newsfeed. The collaborative project between biological engineers and reformed architects has achieved 20% completion, bringing sustainable energy collection to a level unprecedented in galactic history. Emily watched with pride. The swarm represented everything the new era stood for: biological and post-biological intelligence working together, combining the creativity and adaptability of the former with the precision and efficiency of the latter. "My students often ask me," Talus said quietly, "whether the architects would be proud of what we've built from their legacy." "And what do you tell them?" Emily asked. "That the architect's greatest gift wasn't technology or even mourning. It was the understanding that existence, in any form, is precious precisely because it isn't uniform. The universe thrives on diversity, on the tension between different ways of being." As the artifact was finally secured and the transport prepared to depart, Emily felt a strange sensation, a warmth emanating from the ancient device, though all instruments showed it remained inactive. "I believe," she said slowly, "that they would be prouder than they could have imagined." Later that evening, as Gateway Station rotated to catch the light of the setting sun, Emily stood with Talus on the observation deck. Below them, Earth gleamed blue and green and white, still humanity's home, but no longer its boundary. "When I was newly reformed," Talus said, separated from the collective consciousness for the first time in millennia, "I felt only loss and confusion. I could not understand why anyone would choose limited biological existence over our unified transcendence. The sphere shifted, patterns flowing across its surface like liquid metal. But watching your species, watching all the Concordat species, I came to understand what we have forgotten. In your limitations, you find your greatest strength. You adapt, you innovate, you feel deeply and personally in ways a collective consciousness cannot." Emily smiled. "And you've taught us that perspective beyond the individual is valuable too, that seeing patterns across eons has its own wisdom." Around them, the station hummed with activity, representatives from dozens of species going about their business, each bringing unique perspectives to the shared project of civilization. "A century ago," Emily continued, "humanity looked to the stars and wondered if we were alone. Now we know the truth. The universe is filled with intelligence in countless forms, and that diversity isn't something to fear or homogenize, but to celebrate." As the last gleam of sunlight caught the departing transport carrying the architect artifact, Emily felt a profound sense of completion. The artifact had fulfilled its purpose, not just in warning humanity about the threat, but in bringing together a coalition of species that had transcended the very conflict it was created to fight. The ancient device that had changed humanity forever was now, rightfully, a museum piece, a reminder of how far they had come and how much further they might go together. The new era wasn't just beginning, it was flourishing.